Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to be doing a video that I've basically been seeing everybody and their brother doing. We are going to be talking about the 10 books I want to read before the end of 2025, aka my 10 before the end. So when I was kind of creating this list, I was thinking of like books I could be reading during like not even just like the Christmas time, but like during the November time and such. Because as I'm recording this, it's like beginning of November. I think it's either November 7th or November 8th. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. The days are kind of blurring together for me personally. But I just kind of want to talk about the 10 books that I absolutely want to read and have to read by the end of the that I have to read by the end of the year. And if you find that at the end of my 2025 reading wrap up that none of these books are on here, you can personally hold me accountable. You can 100% personally hold me accountable, to say the least. So yeah, let's dive into the first book. And the first book that we have is a book that pretty much I've seen everybody love every single time they read it. It's a beefy boy, but specifically it takes place during the winter time. So many people say to read it during that time period specifically. But we have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. You guys know me. I've been recently getting into historical fiction novels because I'm finding that my taste in like books has been evolving and growing and changing, and historical fiction novels are now kind of like a new favorite of mine personally. I've just been always wanting to kind of dive into it and just kind of like understand it, because also you guys know that I am getting a degree in psychology and creative writing, and if none of those things worked out, I probably would have gone into history personally, just because I love learning about history and how history repeats itself and such. And it's just very much one of those things where I'm just like, I want to just read this book finally. And I feel like everybody and their brother pretty much knows what this is about, but just to give a little bit of recap, this book follows two sisters, specifically in World War II in Paris time. Specifically, one of the sisters, she's a mother while her husband is out in the war, and she's kind of staying kind of behind, while the other sister is very much younger. She doesn't have a family. And she's like, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing while this is going on and such. And I've heard that this is very much a tearjerker. I've also heard that it's a really good one to start off with if you want to get into Kristen Hanna. I've never read any of her books, so I'd be really, really intrigued to read this. And even if I don't read this by the end of the year, it'll be on my winter TBR no matter what, honestly. So if I don't even read it by the end of the year, it's going to be read either sometime at the beginning of next year or something along that lines. But if I can, I really, really want to get to it this year. So that's my first book. And then my second book is a little bit more on the literary fiction side of things. But we have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I actually got this recommendation from Miss Kalila Denson herself. She loves this book. And basically what this book is about is it's about this woman named Eleanor. She struggles with appropriate social skills and tends to say exactly what she's thinking. And specifically, she's just okay with kind of like being alone and being like very content with her life essentially. And then she meets this guy named Raymond, who is the IT guy in her office, whose big heart will ultimately help Eleanor find her way to repair her own profusely damaged one. So kind of like, I don't know if it's going to be like a friendship or even if there's going to be a romance. I'm hoping there's not too much of a romance in this. I'm just hoping that it's maybe something along the lines of like maybe women's fiction or something along that lines, because I've been wanting to read it for a while. It's really tiny as well too, so I can get it out of the way like fairly quickly. At least I can 100% get it out of the way fairly quickly. So that is the second book that I want to read before the year ends. The third one that I have is actually a book from one of my favorite authors, but her actual first book that she ever published, which is If We Ever Meet Again by Anna Huang. This is the first book in the If Love series and such. You've got this one, and then If the Sun Never Sets, and If Love Had a Price, and If We Never See the Sun, something along that lines. I don't remember what exactly they're called. They're probably popping up on the screen somewhere and such. But like you have this one, and then the second one, which those two are their own kind of little duology itself, and then you follow two others essentially in the series, and they're really tiny. They're really kind of tiny books, and it's told in a different way, essentially, from what I've seen. With like Twisted and such, it is told within the person's POV. Well, this one I believe is told in third person point of view, I think, but I'm not too sure. We shall see, to be honest with you. But basically, this one is following this woman named Farah Lin. She is abroad in Shanghai, China, and such, and she's going to try and fall in love for the first time during this year abroad in Shanghai. But the would-be leading man is her new friend's boyfriend and such like that. And there's nothing worse than being in love with someone you can't have, or at least she thinks it's love. But if that's true, why can't she stop fantasizing about someone else, specifically the cocky blonde athlete with the world's biggest ego and greatest dimples, essentially. And then this one also follows Blake Ryan as well too. He has been mentioned within the Aniverse for such a long time and such, and I'd be interested to see his book and such, and just kind of also seeing like how Anna has evolved as a writer. Because I tell you what, one of my favorite things that I like to do is go back into my favorite authors backlist and see where they came from and what they've been doing now, because I think that she's definitely evolved in a good way with her writing, and I'm just like, I just want to try it, you know? I just want to just like read it and just kind of just see, you know? But yeah, that's the third one that I have. This fourth one that I have is actually a classic that I've been meaning to read for a while, because I think it really pertains to a lot of interesting things when it comes to this. But we have Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This one's a really fascinating one and such, but pretty much what it is as follows. This guy, this dude's actual name is named Guy, but he's a fireman, and his job is to destroy the most illegal commodities. His job is basically to destroy the printed book, essentially, along with the houses in which they are hidden, so like libraries and actual books and such. He never questions the destruction and ruin his actions produce, returning each day to his bland life and wife, Mildred, who spends all day with her television family. But when he meets an eccentric young neighbor, Clarice, who introduces him to a past where people didn't live in fear and to a present one sees the world through the ideas in books instead of the mindless chatter of television and such. So he kind of starts to question everything that he's known and like that and such like that. And people, I tell you what, it's such an interesting time living in because of so many people. Like this is one of the banned book lists. It's something on the banned book list at least. And it's just one of those books where you're just like, you need to read it at least once in your lifetime, especially if you're a reader, because reading gives you so much power and so much education and just so much things that you can use in your lifetime, that the concept of destroying the printed book, it's not an abnormal thing and such. It's been talked about for years. I mean, like years, but also at the same time, like it's just one of those things where like, what happens when you keep knowledge from people who want to know that knowledge? And I'm guessing this is gonna kind of be in a similar vein as well too. This one's the 60th anniversary edition and such, and it's just like, wow, you know, it's just like, it's crazy, you know? It's just one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, I should have read this like a long time ago. So this one I for sure want to get to by the end of the year. It's just one of those things where it has to happen no matter what. Okay, and then the next one is actually going to be a little bit more of a Christmassy type of vibe thing and such. And it's actually from an author whose previous book, I did not like it, but we have Good Spirits by BK Borison. I read, what was it? Lovelight Farms, I think, by her last like Christmas season, and I didn't like it. I did not like it whatsoever, to say the least. So this one I'm low-key kind of scared, but I'm going into it with an open mind, because something about me is when I'm trying out authors for the first time, I need to read at least 3 of their books to fully understand if I do like their writing style or their characters or like their story, or if I don't. And I've only read one of BK Borison's book. This would be my second one. If I get to it by the end of the year and such. And it's just one of those things where I just need to just like go into it and just kind of dive in. and like kind of like throw out the notions in a way, you know, of me not liking the first one, because each book is different. Each book has a different kind of connotation to it, you know, and just like things like this. Plus, I will say the sprayed edges are really, really gorgeous and such. I will say that. But basically, what this one is about, his name is Nolan. He's basically the ghost of Christmas past, and he tends to spend his holidays haunting people who are kind of like Scrooges and such like that. But when he's faced with Harriet York, the sweetest assignment he's ever had, he suddenly finds himself wishing for fortune. And Harriet, she's mostly been known as a good person, or at least she tries to be a people pleaser to her core. She always does what's expected of her. But she and Nolan begin to examine her past. They discover there are threads that bind them together and realize there might be more to moving on than expected. So it's an interesting concept. I will say that. I am very curious because I've always kind of liked, what is that movie called? It's the one with Scrooge. Is it, I don't know if it's called The Ghost of Christmas Past. I don't know what that movie is actually called, but it kind of gives that same exact vibes, to say the least. This is one of those books where I need to read it. I need to read it because I'm very curious, because the back of the book sounds very intriguing. So yeah, that's pretty much it that I have on Good Spirits. And then the next one is the start of a fantasy duology and such, which is called The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. I have just wanted to go into Rebecca Ross's backlist for such a long time and such. I love her writing style. I love the way she does characterizations. I love the way that she creates worlds. And she's just become kind of like a favorite author of mine personally. I love it so much. I love her writing style so much. And this one basically follows, I'm just going to read the back because I don't really know too much about this. When her 17th summer solstice arrives, Brianna desires only two things: to master her passion and be chosen by a patron. While at some renowned Magnolia House in Valena, seemed to be naturally gifted at one of the five passions: art, music, dynamics, wit, or knowledge. Brianna struggles to find hers until she chooses knowledge. Then Brianna's greatest fear comes true. She is left without a patron. Months later, her life takes an unexpected turn when a disgraced Lord, Carter Everlist, I think is how you pronounce the name, offers his patroness. When Brianna reluctantly accepts, she quickly learns that there's much more to Carter's story. He's part of a dangerous plot to overthrow the king of a rival land and restore the rightful queen and her magic to the throne. With war on the horizon, Brianna must choose a side. Can she help her patron without betraying the world she knows? So it sounds really, really interesting and such. Sounds really, really interesting. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, like this sounds so fun, you know? It just sounds fun. That's all I can really use to describe it. And I have this on my fall TBR. So hopefully I can get it to it in November. But if I end up getting it to it in December, it's like not going to be too big of a deal for me personally. Okay, and this next one is kind of a random one because it's going to be kind of thrown into a little mini video that I've been seeing just around and such. But we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman specifically. And basically what this book is about is basically about these 39 women who lived in prison in a cage, watched over by guards, with the women having no memory of how they got there, no notion of time, and only vague recollections of their lives before. So from what I've seen this book being marketed as is almost as like, what would it be like if we lived in a world that was mostly occupied by women and such? And it's a modern day classic. It's fairly tiny. It's a really, really short book, to say the least. So like, I am really kind of intrigued, to say the least, you know? It also looks like it's been a translated text as well, too. I've also been trying to get more into classics. I mean, this is the second classic that I have on this list, essentially, you know? So it's just one of those things where it's like, might as well just try it, you know? Just might as well. to say the least. But yeah, that is the 6th book that I have. We've got 3 more books left, and this next one I have has been on my TBR for a long time, because something that you guys may not know is I'm currently writing my debut novel, and I need a lot of writing help, as much as I can get. But we have On Writing, A Memoir of the Craft by Stephen King, and I've been trying to get into a lot more like writing memoirs and what it is to be a writer and such. And Stephen King is one of my favorite authors of all goddamn time. He's one of my favorite authors of all time, and the way that he creates his stories is so beautiful, so elegant, very scary sometimes, because his main genre is horror, but he also writes non-horror things as well too. But I've seen just so many people just wanting to just get the knowledge, because he's such a prolific writer. Oh my gosh, why are people calling me? I have no idea who that person is. Anyways, people are just trying to get so much knowledge and kind of understand how he became a writer in the first place, because he's such a prolific writer, and he's arguably one of the greatest authors within our time period and such. And it's just wow, it's insane, it's just so crazy, But this is 100% a book that I really, really want to read. It's been on my November TBR for a hot minute now, or not my November TBR, my fall TBR for a minute now. And this is one of those books where I need to read at my own pace to understand it and get everything I need from this novel, essentially. So that is the 8th book, and now we've got 2 more books. This next one is actually another start to a duology for a book club book of mine and such that I'm a part of, and that is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Kind of like I said in my shorts before filming this one, I tend to be a very big skeptic when it comes to the fantasy genre specifically, because I've read some not good books, but I've also read some really good fantasy books. And if a fantasy, I've noticed that sometimes fantasies can kind of feel like the same thing, but in a different font and written by a different author specifically. But from what I've heard about Rachel Gillig's work is she can create these really, really interesting magic systems that kind of flip it onto the fantasy genre itself. Like this one specifically and such, it follows this woman named Elspeth, I think is how you pronounce her name and such. She needs more than luck to stay safe in the eerie, mist-locked kingdom of Blunder. She needs a monster. She calls him the Nightmare, an ancient, merciful spirit trapped in her head. He protects her, he keeps her secrets, but nothing comes for free, especially magic. When Elspeth meets a mysterious highwayman on the forest road, her life takes a dramatic turn. Thrust into a world of shadow and deception, she joins a dangerous quest to cure Blunder of the dark magic infecting it. Except the highwayman just so happens to be the king's own nephew, captain of the most dangerous men in Blunder and guilty of high treason. And from what I've heard about this book, the magic system has to do with playing cards, which sounds so interesting to me because I don't think I've ever read a fantasy that involves playing cards. And I know Rachel, she came out with another book earlier this year, The Night and the Moth, which was, I tried to read that one, but I just softy enoughed it for now, I plan on coming back to it, but it's just one of those things. But this is one of those books that I definitely need to read. I 100% need to read this book. But yeah, that's the 9th book that we have. And then the final book, the 10th book, that is my 10 before the end, is a book that I have been wanting to read for such a long time and have now found the excuse to read it because it's also on my winter TBR, like The Nightingale and Good Spirits as well too. But we have Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I tell you what, everybody and their brother who has read Frederick Bachman says that they love his work, that they just absolutely love it, and that his characters are just so beautiful and so amazing, to say the least, and I'm just so excited because basically just to kind of read it and such like that, I feel like everybody knows what Beartown is about, but what this says is a tiny community deep in the forest. Beartown hasn't been the best at anything in a long time, but down by the lake stands an old ice rink, and in the ice rink, Kevin, Amat, Benji, and the rest of the town's junior ice hockey team are about to compete in the national semifinals, and they actually have a shot at winning. All the hopes and dreams of this place now rest on the shoulders of a handful of teenage boys until that heavy burden, the semifinal match, becomes the catalyst of a violent act that will leave a young girl traumatized in a town in turmoil. This is a story about a town and a game, but even more about loyalty, commitment, and the responsibilities of friendship. The people were disappointed even though we love them, and the decisions we make every day that come to define us. This is a story of a small forest town Frederick Bachman has found the entire world. That sounds so sad, but also so interesting. And I've seen so many people giving this book like 5 stars or 4 stars, kind of almost in the same vein that I've seen with like Kristen Hanna books. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody say a negative thing about Christina's books. Not Christina. What's her name? Kristen. I don't think I've seen a negative thing about Kristen's books. Same with Frederick Bachman. This is definitely one of those books where I 100% need to read and such because, we're getting into the colder seasons, It's one of those things where it's like, you just need to read it, That is pretty much it. Those are all of the 10 books that I want to read before the end of 2025. Let me know if any of you guys have read any of these books or you do plan on reading them now that I've said that I'm going to read them. And yeah, thank you guys again so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. Comment down below, like I said, about whatever books are on your 10 before the end as well too. I'm hoping that I'm not too late to the game for this because it just kind of came up out of nowhere. I feel like with this trend and people just started doing it and I'm like, okay, I guess I join in now. But anyways, comment a snowflake emoji and such for the winter time and like getting into the winter-y season and such like that. We're still in fall, but also getting into the winter season as well too. But yeah, all of my stuff is going to be in the description down below, along with my social media popping up on the screen as well too. And I really, really, really hope you guys have an amazing day, week, month, and year. See you later, friends.